Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of the podcast, The Platitude Era. Here we talk about serious things, movies, and holidays. But today, on this episode of the podcast, we're going to take a break from the serious and talk about the semi serious. This podcast is about the midterm elections, 2018. First off, thank you to everybody for listening to this podcast on YouTube as Platitude Era, or the Anchor app, or Spotify. And if you have any questions or want to get in touch with us, you can always reach us on Twitter. We are Platitude Era on Twitter. And let's just dive right into this, the midterm elections 2018. Co-host, do you have anything to say?
No.
Okay, so the politics is a very delicate and sensitive issue, and it's really hard for people to talk about. But one thing that is common, no matter what party line you swing on, whether you're on one side of the party, another, or you choose third party, is that you have to get out there and vote. And the election is Tuesday, November 6, 2018. So if you're listening to this podcast Tuesday, then you still have time to vote. But after Tuesday, that's it. If you had something to say and you wanted to stamp that ballot, you missed your opportunity. It's just so many ads going on right now telling everyone, please go out there and vote. Please go out there and vote. And I was reading some articles about the election, and what's interesting is that out of all the eligible voters in this country, less than half the people vote. I mean, there's so many statistics out there, so many figures and data. I don't know what the exact number is or how to analyze that data. Did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just thinking, so you say that this huge statistic of people that don't vote. Well, it's kind of a couple of things. I think because if you watch TV or maybe ads on YouTube or whatever, you notice that like a ton of the ads are for things that probably don't apply to young. So the point is to get younger people to vote, but a lot of the ads are for things that don't really apply to younger people. Like I'm seeing 50 million commercials for dialysis because big companies are advertising to people that watch TV, and like so whatever the smaller issues that might be more local or related to people probably aren't getting as much view time as like these ones were. So like older people tend to vote because they have more time and they don't have anything to do. So it seems like the people that are advertising like certain proposition, to sway one way or the other, are like specifically targeting like older people or younger, like older people over younger people. So like it's kind of on younger people to do the research to see like, oh, who's which candidate is worthwhile, which person has the better policy or which proposition. I'm seeing 50 million for dialysis. That doesn't necessarily relate to me, but maybe there's another proposition that relates to me that I should vote for that, but that doesn't get the screen time, and then people just end up not caring, and that's why you end up seeing such a mass separation between older and younger voters.
Do you think that's something that will be fixed later on, where we'll get
we've
younger?
been a country for 250 years or whatever, and I'm pretty sure the trend is just going to continue on the same course. Doesn't matter how many internet campaigns people see, like, there's still so many people who are like, yeah, but it still doesn't affect me. I'm going to hear that 10 years from now. I'm going to hear it 50 years from now. Younger people will be like, yeah, but it doesn't really affect me. There's like 15 propositions to vote for. I've only seen ads for like 2 or 3. And I'm pretty sure a ton of people are like, meh. Or you see like the school board and like people are like, I'm out of, like, so like kids can't vote because like they see like a million for like the school board, and like, if your superintendent's an idiot, you can't vote. So I don't know. It's hard. I think it's hard for people to want to do the home. Like they have to take the initiative to actually do the research to see what candidate for governor, senator, House, Senate, whatever, who represents their ideals and their policies better. And then I think a lot of people just like, depending on where they live, they just see it as a lost cause. Like, oh, I'm more left leaning or I'm right leaning, but I live here, so it doesn't matter because traditionally we're either left or right. So, for those people don't care. oh, my friends are already going to vote this way, so who cares what I vote? I see. I've been living in this town for 50 years. We've had the same three mayors or whatever, and then they're all the same political party. So who cares? So I think a lot of those people probably void themselves out of voting, and then so I guess it would matter more for people that live in swing states or people whose counties or whatever are more purple than red or blue.
And that is scary that midterms elections have the lowest turnouts
Because
compared
it
to
doesn't have like the sexiness that a presidential election has.
And they say that the midterm elections are the ones that affect you more because it's more tied to local issues.
Yeah, because people they tie the president to like, oh, this person's he's gonna shake my hand, he's gonna help me. But in all honesty, it's like your 26th district congressional whatever congressman is actually the closest related politician to you. But that doesn't sound sexy. The 27th district doesn't sound sexy, so who cares?
That's true.
Paul Guntherman doesn't sound sexy, so who cares?
That's true. To compare politics to a sporting event, when do more people support the team? Is it during the season or during the playoffs or during the World Series or championship?
Well, it would be it starts ramping up at the playoffs, and then it reaches a tipping point in the like World Series or whatever. So like I don't know. I feel like for most events, or like even like every year, there's an election. Like right now, it's a midterm, but like last year was just like a general election. So like let's assume the general election is like preseason, and then the midterm is like the regular season. Then presidential is your world championship finals, whatever. So people are like, I'm kind of interested, but only if my team's doing well. And that's the midterm election, I guess maybe.
So overall, is it worth it to vote in the midterm elections? I mean, maybe I did poor wording, but midterm elections, what's the deal?
What's the deal? I don't know. That's a broad question, but I mean, it kind of depends where you are. Like, if you live on a coastal city, it's probably going to be voting blue. So I guess the propositions have a little more sway. Like it can like go either way. I feel like the actual like whoever the heads that could be voted for, I don't really see that. Like I live in a coastal city, it's gonna be blue, so tough shit, tough tits, whatever. But like maybe some propositions, like there'd been like for gay marriage or marijuana or whatever, like there'd been some elections where like makes sense, why wouldn't people legalize it? Oh, it doesn't get legalized, and then well I guess we'll have to wait another 2 to 4 years or whatever, and then eventually maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, and then it could possibly get repealed. Or like net neutrality or whatever. So it's all dependent. Like I said, people are required to do their homework, but it's not. People are busy binging whatever nonsense on Netflix. I got more shit to do.
Well, here's some.
I don't have time. I got a job, and the polls close at 7, and I get off at 5:30. Shit like that.
Here's some data I collected. I don't know who this applies to. If this is to everybody in general, or if this is just the youth. But according to the Census Bureau 2016, and I'm getting this from an article, so according to this article that got this data from the Census Bureau 2016, out of the people that vote, 25% say they don't like their choices. 15% say they're not interested.
Okay.
14% say too busy.
Those all fall under the same umbrella to me.
And 12%. So then you can actually say, because it falls on the same umbrella to you, 29%.
If you cared, you wouldn't be too busy. You'd make time. Polls open at 7 a.m. Unless you have to be on the driving to work at 6:30 in the morning or something. But there's also early ballots too. Like you can mail it in or do it a week in advance or whatever.
That's a good point. And nobody bothers to do that.
There isn't really a lot impeding you. There are ways around it, but like people don't care. They're not interested. They don't take the time.
Because politics, like you said, isn't sexy.
Yeah, especially midterm elections.
And then 12% of the people say they don't vote because they have an illness or disability.
That's just an excuse. Sounds like you're just lazy.
Now, tell me if...
But like I said, mail-in. Or there's got to be some form of online voting.
Now, tell me if I'm crazy here.
You're nuts.
Or I might be onto something. This is something that could potentially happen. But if voter turnout continues to decline, election through election to election to election, Does that mean that at a certain point they're going to take away a person's right to vote just
No.
because it's like, hey, you're not voting anymore. This isn't working. We need another way to elect officials.
Maybe like in 170 years from now, when we live in a dystopian future where the only resources that are available are trees are more valuable than gold, then sure, whatever. But I don't know. I think we live in a jaded society that doesn't really care about anything and just keep like people will be called to action for something that matters. So your dumb theory of voters will never be allowed to vote ever again. It will be a tyrannical dictatorship. Like for that kind of shit, people turn out in droves to knock that shit off. But I don't see any of that nonsense ever coming.
Wow, you just put me in my place.
Yeah, because I want you to skip that stupid point.
Okay, so I skipped that point that you wanted me to, and then I guess that's it. There's no more points, so unless you got something else to say, I think it's time to start wrapping up this podcast. And
Just really quickly, just for anybody listening, and when it comes to elections and general voting, I'd say don't vote. It's just a waste of time. You probably have better things to do. And like I'm pretty sure whatever is on the ballot doesn't really affect you. So in all honesty, you don't really need to vote. But that's just my personal opinion.
so there you have it, people. Midterm elections, whether you're going to vote or not, you heard the data, you heard our reasons, we reported back on things that we've heard. Now the choice is up to you whether you go out and vote or not. And thank you for listening to this podcast, Platitude Era, on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor app. You could reach us on Twitter, @Platitude Era. And thank you very much, everybody. And it's so funny. Politics isn't sexy. This is one of our shortest podcasts ever, I believe.
Well, you didn't really take a stance. You didn't lean one way or another. You just said, do a thing.
Look, I would have taken a stance if I would have done some more research, but I was just too busy, and my choices, I didn't like them, and I just wasn't interested in the choices that were available.
So you're telling me you didn't do the proper research to see what you should be voting for?
Hey, but the next
I think
elections,
I've heard this scenario before.
the next elections are 4 years away, so I have 4 years to do research.
Isn't there an election every year?
No, I think 2 years.
Whatever.
Well, I have plenty of time till the next election to do research and actually come up with something.
I'll keep my calendar set for the next first Tuesday in November next year and see what's up.
Oh, here's a fun little tidbit.
And continue not voting.
Here's a fun little tidbit. When I was younger, you know why I loved Election Tuesday so much?
Because you got the Kids Time Life magazine at school,
No.
and then they had all the pictures of who's going to be running.
No.
Mock elections in school.
No.
Voted for the bully in the playground.
No. Channel 5 would show a movie on Tuesday, election night, and make a big deal about it. They were like, oh, hey, because it's election night, after you vote, come home and watch this super movie on Super Tuesday on Channel 5. And the only movie I remember they would advertise for the election was Back to the Future.
So you're telling me the only reason voter turnout has been declining is because Channel 5 doesn't show Back to the Future anymore? I don't think the onus is on the American citizen. I think it's on the TV networks to put Back to the Future back on. If I can watch A Christmas Story every year for 24 hours, then how come I can't watch Back to the Future every year after the election?
You just made the biggest point there, and my mind is blown. Every holiday should have a movie. Elections should be Back to the Future. Christmas should be A Christmas Story. And then where does The Nightmare Before Christmas fit in?
Easter. Oh, stupid fucking question.
Well, I'm sorry, everybody, that I asked a couple of stupid questions and talked about a topic that made some of you very uncomfortable, but it's something that had to be said. People, use your right to vote and vote. Tuesday, November 6th, midterm elections. Be there or be square. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Once again, we are on YouTube, Platitude Era, and you could reach us, Twitter, @Platitude Era. Bye-bye.